Welcome back to The Watch and Game of Thrones. It's not
Yes.
dead.
Yeah, seemingly, but it depends what you consider Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I was about to say Game of Thrones is kind of
The
dead.
TV show is dead, but the franchise lives on.
It liveth on, being resurrected by House of the Dragon. And with House of the Dragon, wow, HBO seems to be going all in. And there are 6 additional shows that they are pushing forward with.
I feel like we should start with the spicy one, the Jon Snow one.
All right, we'll get there. First, I actually just want to kind of give a review, not a review, a discussion, retrospective on what House of the Dragons did and interest around it and all that. So Game of Thrones, when we said Game of Thrones is dead, okay, it's funny, like the series is A Song of Ice and Fire, and it's probably that universe, but now it's just the Game of Thrones universe because of the
It's just known by that, yeah.
of the original show. And House of the Dragon, right, I feel is such a good show that it can stand on its own merit, and you don't even, like, you say it's a prequel, like, you don't even need to watch Game of Thrones to enjoy House of the Dragon, and I still stand by that. And as a result, I think that's in it to its favor. I actually feel that they might want to remake the entire Game of Thrones series completely.
I don't know if they would do that.
It's a moneymaker.
yeah.
And if they made it more accurate to the books, and
The thing is, as Gary would say, they haven't finished the fucking book. So, they're still going to run into the same sort of problem.
yeah, if they remake it after George finishes the books, if he ever does, then I think they have something. Because House of the Dragons, spicy take here. I have watched up to season 5, I think, of Game of Thrones, and I jumped off of when it really went
I'm just trying to
downhill.
figure out how many seasons was there again? 6 or 7?
There was 8, wasn't there?
8?
So the 8 seasons of Game of Thrones.
Where did you end on season 5 in terms of story?
Okay.
Are they at the wall?
I think the Battle of, is it Hardhome, when they fight the White Walkers in the snow and stuff?
Where Jon Snow and the Night King do their thing?
He smashes he gets his sword out and he shatters the Night King weapon because
That's like season
oh, then I'm well past
3
that.
or 4 or something. That's
Okay.
season 5 is when they go.
Tyrion is being a counselor to Dragon Lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's well into it. Season 5, somewhere around there. Anyway, okay. So even having watched the better part of Game of Thrones, I actually enjoyed House of the Dragons more. There's some subjective takes on it. I like that it was less lewd and other elements. Game of Thrones didn't need it, and it was to its detriment that it had.
Didn't need it.
Didn't need it at all.
People have sex in the real world, and it was
What
relative.
sex is in this show, but they were anyway. This is a whole other debate, but the fact is, they
but-
even look. No, you
Okay,
can't.
no,
You can't
no,
argue
no, no,
because
I
they
wanna-
admitted it.
I've
They
got a point.
created a term.
I have got a
that
point.
Was so pointless.
I've got a point to make
But
here,
I'm
and I'm
not
going to make it.
Too tyrant.
You're the one who says that weekly releases makes things bigger. Do you think, yes or no, Game of Thrones would have been bigger if it had nudity in it or not?
What do you
Because
mean?
I think the nudity added to the aspect of why so many people wanted to watch it,
Yeah.
as it was something very unique
Teenage
for the time.
boys.
Yes.
Teenage boys,
Yes.
just because they
So-
didn't have access to the internet.
It was better for the business, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably, but it was when I say it was a detriment to the show, they basically didn't have it showed that they didn't have confidence in their own writing, where there were great scenes with really important exposition that they actually felt wouldn't be interesting enough to the audience, so they just throw boobs in there, and they actually made a term for it, sexposition, where they purposely added needless nudity into it.
I
because
will argue
they lacked the
nudity is never
confidence-
needless.
I will argue.
I will
absolutely.
stand by this position as a
I-
man.
Absolutely. There are times when nudity is very pointless and needless, but there are times when it's actually enhances the show and can be quite powerful. Okay. I'm not
Yes,
such
I
a
agree.
prude where
I
you've
agree
gotta,
with that, yes.
cut at all, right? And the use of nudity and sex in House of Dragons was actually done far more subtly, far more maturely, and was made the show actually. I see it as a more serious, artistic kind of piece, where Game of Thrones purposely did it for cheap, eye candy, and that was cheap. It was a cheap move that people did like. I'm not saying they didn't, but it was lazy and cheap.
Okay. Do you think that if there was more nudity in House of Dragon, it would fit better because the story revolves a lot around
I think
infidelity.
I think probably not fit better, honestly. What the amount that they had in was appropriate, and sometimes they even went too far for me. But there were times in it where they actually used sex scenes to enhance the plot in a actual significant way that was important for the plot, and so that's to the show's benefit, I think, overall in terms of how maturely it handled that. To me, I like that more because it was a more mature show as a result, and great character work. And people might say, like, the best Game of Thrones season is season 1. And they might not say House of Dragon season 1 is better than Game of Thrones season 1. But if I was to gauge my whole viewing experience of Game of Thrones...
Best written season?
Actual written,
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And if I was to gauge my whole experience with Game of Thrones versus my whole experience with House of the Dragon, I like House of the Dragon more. I actually think it...
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I've watched all of... I don't want to get in the last season, but, like, I like House of Dragon because it took everything that I liked about Game of Thrones, which is the dragons, the Targaryens, all the interesting stuff, and made a show. I remember when they first announced the Stark prequel, like 1,000, like with no Targaryens, no dragons, I was completely baffled. I was like, nobody's going to want to watch this. I mean, Stark fans might, but like, wouldn't you want to go with the stuff that makes your franchise unique, the dragons and the Targaryens? And they did, and it's super popular.
Well, see, to me, like, dragons, I actually don't care about. The thing that I loved about the show was the writing and the medieval aesthetic and the character work.
You have merch that
I
says,
do.
"What about dragons?"
Dragons are cool, but I don't need them to make a great show. And my favorite parts of the
you
show,
don't need them to make a great show, but it's like, yes, I want to see more dragons.
Well, this is the thing. As much as I like dragons, I like knights, swords, and castles way more.
Yeah, but it's going to have that regardless.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Give me a show with cool knights, swords, and castles, great character work, cool setting, and good story and writing. Bang, I'm there.
But we've got dragons as well. We have them on top.
Yes,
so we have all of it.
But this is the thing, right? There is a... how are you going there, Nathan?
Good. Don't worry, we'll get to points I can actually talk about this. Because unlike the others, I was a good Christian boy, and after episode 1 of Game of Thrones, I'm like... Gotta repent from this one.
Based. So, there is one of the new shows that are coming out that's been greenlit for the Game of Thrones universe, right? That I am so excited for. I'm friggin' there. And that's basically the reason why it has all my favorite elements, but ramped up. And it's the Hedge Knight. Okay?
What's
the
that
Hedge
about?
Knight.
Because I
Sorry, grab the Hedge Knight right up there, sir. So this is the Hedge. So Hedge Knight is a prequel, almost mini novel. So I think it was he wrote it in a compilation. I can't exactly, or it might be a dedicated book. Anyway, it's a prequel book, right? And this is the graphic novel adaptation that was done by George Martin, but also Mike S. Miller, who is the artist, same artist who did this, is doing the graphic novel adaptation of my book, Shadow the Conqueror. You can't get it anymore because you missed the boat. But
the campaign's done.
The campaign's done. We're working on fulfillment, but. This is such a brilliant graphic novel, and the story is brilliant, and it's all about, like, classic chivalry knighthood in this fantasy world. It's absolutely flippin' awesome. I love it. I love Dunk, and like I said, I don't need dragons, but this story is got awesome classic knighthood elements with a great character, great story. I like it way more. It's one of my favorites.
I think that the biggest ones that they could ever do is an Aegon's Conquest.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That would be like my dream scenario. That and Robert's Rebellion. Those are the two that, like, if they made those, they could be like, I would probably enjoy them more than House of the Dragon.
Probably. Well, this is the thing. This is, I guess, what HBO
not
is
that
discovering.
Not that those have been announced. Those are just on my wish list.
We'll go to the ones that have been announced. But HBO seems to be discovering that the universe that Martin has created is hugely expansive, got such a great rich history that you could pick a period in history and do a series around it. You reckon? Well, actually,
I mean,
some of these ones I do have question marks because one of the ones that people are perhaps not too thrilled about is a sequel series called Snow.
Yes, that's the one time period that you don't want to.
You do not want to canonize.
So this is
what happened in Game of Thrones. You want to remake it. Retcon it. Redo it.
What is it like? Have you seen the last season? Have you seen it? Did you review it? Did you?
All right. So like the Battle Night thing. When they attack the.
All right. So don't worry about any of that. Just.
But I know all the story. I know what happens.
So basically, they just undo everything. especially with Jon Snow's character. His character's just wiped clean. Now, in the books, I believe they're still up to the part where he's dead. I think that's where they're at in the books. So a lot of it's been made on the show, right? But they threw out what they made on the show anyway. So it's like, where does Jon Snow go from here? There's no story for him. Is he going to, like, I genuinely don't care.
But John McQueen, didn't he say he's returning to the wall?
Yeah, he went back to the wall. He went back to the wall and then went past the wall with the wildlings. So it's like, I don't know what the story is going to be about. Like, any story, I just don't care.
Is he going to go back and try and reclaim the throne from his brother? Because Bran was really an awful, awful king.
The only show that I would watch is if, like, he became somehow king. Like, as the rightful heir. That's the only story that I'd watch. Anything else, and I simply just don't care.
You're like, questions. You're right. Like, what type of show will they make around Jon Snow? Like,
it's just like it's a shame because Kit Harington seems to want to like do some justice, maybe like bring something back, but it's like it's too late, basically.
Yeah, so that one's a big question mark.
Just
for
like
me.
Avatar.
But tell you what, Hedge Knight though, I'm freaking there for Hedge Knight. Now the question is, will these shows be good? And the hope is the fact that House of the Dragon was really good. These other shows might be good, but the thing is, it really depends on who's making it. It seems like the production team that's behind House of the Dragon, they have so there were two showrunners. The bad one is gone. He was the one who was politicized.
Sorry to bother you.
I want to keep that in now.
We
have a shot of Tyrant hitting himself in the head.
Yeah, there was a fly.
I know.
There was a fly.
I was there. I didn't see a fly. I think you just.
Yeah. All right.
So they got rid of the bad director who was trying to politicize House of the Dragons and get woke points and all that bullcrap when the show's actually not woke.
Yeah, you're right, but I mean, we watched the. Have you seen inside the episode?
I watched like one or two segments from it, and that was enough to realize this is complete.
Yeah, like it doesn't match up with the show at
I
all.
know. But
I mean, like,
about
the
interpretation of what the show's saying constantly. But they did it repeatedly.
Yeah.
And that guy was one of the main, offenders there. But he's gone now. And the showrunner that works directly with George R. Martin, is on board. And George had a lot more involvement with House of the Dragons, and they listened to him more. And I felt like I could tell that just by the livery that the knights were wearing and the details, because George loves medieval, historically accurate details. And you're my man. I love that because I love that same aesthetic. And so, just like the medieval hunt, they made it look like an actual medieval hunt. And there was so many great, cool things that just increased the immersion and appreciation for that show. I don't know if George is going to be able to have that for all these shows. He's going to be too spread thin.
Well, I'm going to
get those last books. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, if he is, he's not going to finish the books. You're right.
Well, the thing is, when I look at this list of these upcoming shows, I don't really think there's any that I'm... Like, I would be like, oh, yeah, because House of the Dragon, I was pumped for. I know you didn't believe in it or anything like that, but me, I was pumped for House of the Dragon.
I thought it was going to be bad.
I did not. As soon as they announced that they were canceling the Stark one and they were doing House of the Dragon, I'm like, let's go. This is going to be good. And all of these, not
well,
so
that's
much.
the interesting thing. Out of all of them, so we've mentioned Hedge Knight and Snow.
Yep.
Then there's one called 10,000 Ships. No friggin' idea what that is.
I'm guessing it's going to be something to do with Dawn.
Okay.
Or maybe the Iron Islands.
There's one called the Golden Empire, which is clearly one of the Eastern kind of, empires, some with Asiatic kind of inspirations.
This one...
There's one called the Sea Snake, which
Now-
is about, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Isn't it going to be his 5 years
I
when he
don't
was
know.
away
I
fighting
don't
on his
know.
own?
I don't know. Like, I think he's an interesting enough character to have something there.
Maybe.
I don't know about a full show. But
That's a
but-
full show around him.
But I do like the character. So it's like it's just like
So there's a period because House of the Dragon skips a lot of like
Yeah, it skips
time in
the-
between episodes,
Oh.
and there's a almost a 5-year skip, right, where the
where he
Sea
gets
Snake
injured. Yeah,
is off fighting on the Stepstones.
Yeah.
And they think he might have died. They could make a whole series in between.
I don't
is
think
that
they
what they're
would.
doing?
I don't think they would.
I mean-
I think if they were going to go for Sea Snake, maybe like the transition period between Jaehaerys and Viserys. You know how she got is it the older one?
The young
Rainey's.
actors
No,
that
no,
are
no, no.
older.
Rainey's.
Okay, yeah.
His wife Rainey's. When they skip over her, and they skip over Laenor, like
Maybe.
maybe the Jaehaerys,
I don't
dynasty.
know. Maybe, but I don't know enough of the I guess history to be able to determine, because when I like the period where there's
Yeah, like
a
if
gap,
like
a period where it's constant fighting, and this guy is front and center of
like
it.
the only thing that I can think about like conflict off the top of my head is that
Yeah.
when he's battling the Stepstones. But other than that, I'm not sure. But I think
Could be interesting.
I think it could be alright.
Like, actually could be interesting, because I know enough of the context. This is me speculating, because we actually don't have confirmation what it's based in. But if it is at any point, it could be that. Then there's an untitled animated series in development. And so those are the 6 new shows. Out of all of them, 100% by far, beyond like anything, it's the Hedge Knight I'm like so there for and excited for. The other ones I'm like,
the Snow one is just one I'm more interested to know what they do than I'm not going to watch it. I'm just interested. Like, is George Martin going to be like, is he going to add anything, or is he gonna, like, are they just going to do their own thing? What's going to happen there?
What do you think there, Nathan? What stands out to you as a complete normie, like non Game of Thrones?
This is interesting because they got all these shows. Surely they should be able to get people who haven't seen Game of Thrones to watch at least one of these shows. For me, I think they're Hedge Knight as well, because chivalry. If it's just like a knight going around doing knight stuff, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
The animated series I have to see more of, but that also sparks my interest. What's it going to be about? Is it like, what's the target audience for that? We're going to have this gruesome, gore, gross. Like, are they going to go all out Game of Thrones, or are we going to have more like beautiful animation?
Yeah. See, one of the things that I love about Hedge Knight is it's not like this entire empire, dynasties are at stake with these huge things. It's actually a far more personable tale about a single
So that's
knight.
what I want.
And the term Hedge Knight in the series refers to a knight that is not sworn for his whole life to a single lord. It's like a mercenary knight where he swears his fealty for a small time. I will serve you, this lord, for this amount of time while you need my help here, and then I'll travel and serve other things, and that's what a Hedge Knight is. And so Duncan the Tall, the first story, which is this one, is how he becomes knighted, and there's some great events. But one of the things that gets him embroiled in some larger things, he ends up coming across a young lad, a boy, who basically tries to ride his horse without his permission and is like, who the hell are you? This is actually where this is the introduction of Egg, the character Egg. He's like on his horse right here, and he's like, who are you? But Egg ends up being a far more important person than he realizes. And the events of this first tale, he ends up being the squire to Sir Duncan. And just having that interaction there adds like a really intriguing point of significance. Yet he still goes on his own like adventures and stuff. And they're just great. They're great small scale kind of tales, but you get really invested in him. I love Sir Duncan. He's not it's funny. He's not dumb, but he's not overly intelligent. And so he makes some little goofs here and there, and he's very self-critical, and he's like, dunk the lunk, thick as a castle wall and stuff. Yet he is good. He's one of those wonderful characters. And this is where I think the Game of Thrones universe actually shines. This is why I loved the king's name. Not Jaehaerys. Now I got mixed up. The king in House of the Dragon. Viserys. This is why I love Viserys so much, is because he was such a good man in a world so corrupt and evil, and it makes these few good people stand out really well because they need to work harder to be good in this corrupt world. And Dunk is just perfect character like that, where he follows chivalry. You do not, insult a lady, and he will punch out a prince if you insult a lady in front of him. He's just a legend.
I'm pretty sure Viserys in the books is a bit more one-dimensional than the show.
I've actually, I've heard those comments where Viserys in the show is better, more rounded out.
Yeah.
And George even said that, like, the show Viserys is better than the book
Yeah.
Viserys. So I'm really interested to see what they do with their Hedge Knights. I just hope they get someone good. Get a good team, because I don't think there's too many things being made to get the people who made House of Dragons to make these other shows, which worries me.
Well, I think that they've obviously seen the success of House of the Dragon, so they're probably going to keep that team where it is. They're not going to try. I don't think they'll compromise that for the others.
You're right.
So I think I don't think we'll see the same sort of quality on the others going forward.
No, that's a worry, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
It depends because look, HBO, which is owned by Warner Brothers, is it not?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think it is. So HBO, right? They seem to have learnt from their errors at the end of Game of Thrones, and they have approached House of Dragons intentionally, saying we need to make sure we don't make the same mistakes, and they hide the right
The
people.
problem was with Game of Thrones, it was the writing. It wasn't the production quality or anything else. Like there were some, like I know there's some mistakes, like water bottles in the last season, but that's like super like.
But the showrunners as well, like.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like.
So the higher ups, it's the producers and the directors, okay, and the people who are leading the show. They need to be properly committed. But also, this is the thing. They did have good writers on House of the Dragon. I don't know how much George was involved in it, if you can credit to George, because he was heavily involved. And some of the writing seems like, all right, that is George level writing, or it could have just been good writing.
From what I understand, it's pretty faithful, except for like a couple of things like other characters would do, and like some scenes where someone would say something else instead of the other person. Like for the most part, I'm pretty sure it's pretty close.
But this is the thing, right? Gary, so in my discussions with Gary, he says that he actually thinks House of the Dragons is better written, a better show than the book, than its source material.
But he doesn't like the book.
He doesn't like the book. And he likes House of the Dragon. But the thing is, though, is that a sign where they actually have been able to improve upon the source material? So often when they're working off the source material, they make it worse, like Rings of Power.
I think that's more of just like a medium thing. Like books can be very one-dimensional, and when you read a book, you transpose a bit of stuff onto it. You know, like for example, when Paddy Constantine played Viserys, he put his own
you're right.
His own flair to it.
They did have they had such great actors in House of the Dragons that really got into their characters to the point where they were able to they were able to improvise really awesome elements in the show that enhanced it. And so it's a combination. You need great actors, you need the people in control, like the producers and the directors really good, and you need really good writers. And I'm just will they get that for these other shows? But they it seems like the people organizing House of the Dragons were so keenly aware to not make the same mistakes that they hired the right people to do the job. And if they approach that in the same mentality as other shows, we might have some positivity in the future and some good stuff.
I think the only thing that surprised me about House of Dragon was how they approached the time skips, how that was very aggressive in terms of, you know,
I think they managed it though.
They pulled it off, but it's like because there is long gaps where nothing's really happening in the story.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it was perfect, right? Because like Sir Cole, he looks like he never aged at all.
Yeah.
At least give him some grays on the side or something like. So there were little things, but they are nitpicks in that regard.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
You can still point them out, and they're valid, okay? But they don't ruin the show because overall they did a great job. Like the aging of Viserys, was done expertly. And so where it mattered, they pulled it off. We will have to wait and see, I guess. It's just interesting how much, there's been so many losses, and if Warner Brothers owns HBO, which I can't remember if they do or not, but they haven't been making, and if it's just HBO on its own, so many shows have bombed. And that House of the Dragons has been a win, one of the few wins recently that they're just doubling down and let's go.
I'm curious to see how many of these will get cancelled.
That's a good point.
Because some of them might not even make it to Launchpad.
What is in development, these days?
Yeah. Like all I'm gunning for is just Aegon's Conquest.
That's what people want.
And Robert's Rebellion. If I get both of those,
those two ones were the ones that Gary was mentioning all the time. Those are the big money makers if they wanted to make
that's where
big.
That's where all the meat happens.
You're right. It does seem odd that they're not jumping on those big ones that would have a lot of interest, and they got these random Golden Empire, 1,000 ships.
Dance of Dragons, like House of Dragons, that is pretty big because it is. Oh, I can't spoil.
I know, but I know House of the House of the Dragon was a good pick.
That is a good pick.
But in these other ones, the only one that I think has really big interest is Hedge Knight. And maybe Snow because it's what the hell is going to happen?
Maybe name recognition because of Jon Snow, but yeah.
But the Sea Snake, Golden Empire, 1,000 ships, it is weird that they're going with these options when they could have done Robert's Rebellion or, Aegon Conquest.
Maybe they want to save those ones for really, really the best they can do. But that's just me
it could
hoping
be.
more than anything
they
else.
have a big thing with House of Dragons, and this is we're willing to do a risk. We've got all this goodwill, and if they fail, we can then jump on the interest to try and reboot the franchise again with the big one.
Yeah.
Interesting thought. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah. I want to see
You heard
how
it here
well,
first.
I want to see how Snow does though, because in my head I can only picture it being bad. I
From
can't think
from
of
a
good-
story point, 100%. Like I just
I can't
genuinely
see
don't
how you
think
could
there's
fix
any
that.
way you can fix
Yeah,
Snow
I know,
in like an addendum part. It's like the damage has been done here.
I've said it already, and I'll say it again. They need a retcon and I think it's a remake of Game of Thrones would be huge. Like just out of interest of will they pull it off? And then if they have the people who are talented as made House of the Dragons to make it, that it would be better. They could make a better version, and the production value would be better. Do some of the big battles.
Books aren't done. It's like
It's true. It's true. Wait for the books. Wait for the books, and then remake it. But the problem is, you're right. Snow is, unless they just retcon the Snow show that they haven't made yet when they remake.
I don't know. I feel like because like. So we're looking at a graphic here that's showing all these things.
We'll bring it up.
Yeah. The Snow one, that actually looks pretty well done. I don't know if HBO has done these like thumbnail things, but the Snow one looks good. The Thousand Ships just looks like a book one. Same with the Hedge Knight. So that's not really much, but like if they're already doing like graphics and stuff, they might be really like, yeah, we're going to go for this.
I don't know. It doesn't take much to just hire an artist to.
I know. It's just from what I'm
that's
looking
all I
at.
can say. Good luck.
And Nathan still probably won't watch it.
I'm gonna try Hedge Knight.
Hedge Knight. Well, Hedge Knight should not have a lot of nudity in it, from what I've read from the graphic novels.
And look, I'll be honest with you. When season 2 of House of the Dragon comes out, I will watch it and review it because the first season
yeah, got you.
got me. It
Got
got
you?
me.
Yeah.
It got me
Have you actually watched House of the Dragon, or you think-
vicariously through the edits.
through the edits? Because the thing is though, the nudity isn't an actual sticking point for a lot of people like me and Nathan. And now I have a more liberal view than even a lot of people in my own faith about nudity, where I actually think I don't. For instance, I guess my baseline is like art, right? I don't think the Statue of David is pornographic. Okay? I think there's actually a mature view of nudity that can be understood. But usually, even with that, I would say it's better from my own kind of standards to reserve that for when you're old enough and mature enough to be able to understand it in its correct context.
Right,
And
but
so,
I don't think children should be watching House
Exactly.
of the Dragon or Game
yeah,
of Thrones.
absolutely. But I would even say young men, and my own standard is like men. Wait until you're married and you understand the mature side of sex and nudity, and then there's the thing. Let your wife decide if it's that's probably
Well, damn it! I guess that's not.
yeah. It's for me. I don't know. This might piss off people. Like, if you're married and watching Game of Thrones on your own, it's kind of like, but
Depends on parts you're enjoying.
yeah, what parts do you
Yes,
enjoy?
But
I like it's honest if you watch it with your wife, okay? There's nothing hidden there.
I don't have anything to add to
Yeah.
this.
The thing is, though, that is a sticking point for a lot of people, and I felt they did it in a much more mature.
Are you
respectful
sure
way.
though? Like I have never heard that criticism.
You probably don't, I guess, hanging out with a lot of religious people.
Yeah, no, I don't. So like,
there you go. But the thing is, there's a lot of religious people in the world still, and there's a lot of people that do have issues with gratuitous nudity. I'm one of them.
right, but it's like if you apply it to that, then you got to apply it to like violence, right?
No, there's a completely different standard. For instance, and this is good to to let people know, right? So, scripturally, okay. No, it's true. From a Christian perspective, you are commanded to not lust after another woman, because if you lust after another woman, you commit adultery in your own heart. But there is no commandment to not watch violence happen. In actual fact, you need to be prepared to be able to even perform acts of violence to protect what is good and wholesome. Like the Bible has some of the most crazy violent stuff in it, okay? And if there was a dictate to not watch violent stuff, it wouldn't be in the Bible either. And so to say that, oh, watching sex is as bad as watching people commit murder, it's like, no, it's a completely different standard.
If that's how you want it, that's fine. I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
It's your standard. That's
No,
fine.
well, no, it's the Christian biblical standard that I'm referring to here. And so but it's interesting because you brought it up, and there are people that try and make an equivalence between the two when there's actually not an equivalence from a Christian perspective. The thing is, though, from a Christian perspective, there are like nudity is a part of life, okay?
Yeah.
And so when you're mature enough and you can understand that context, I'm willing to, and I even happily admit, I actually have some graphic nudity in my own book
Yeah.
because it's part of life, and to be realistic, there's things that you do need to address if you want an honest story. And I think they did that with House of the Dragons. Where Game of Thrones, I still say they went over the top. They did it for cheap eye candy where it wasn't needed, and even distracted from the plot.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
But Tyrus disagrees with me, and a lot of you will disagree with me
Oh,
too.
don't
but
worry,
I appreciate you anyway.
Don't worry, fans. I will cut this whole bit from so you don't
It's
have
not,
to listen.
It's not. It's staying in. But there we go. So, guys, what do you think? Do you think these new Game of Thrones shows are going to be any good? Are they going too much? Are they going too far? They're spreading themselves too thin, and there's going to be less quality control as a result. That's a worry. I really look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments down below. And
stay on watch.
no. Stay on watch.